Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and life. Joined by my co-host, the wild, wonderful Hailee Piendl. We are here to get fired up, so let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up. I'm fired up this fine Thursday morning.
Good.
Crisp Thursday of October 2025.
We are pumped that you are here to join us today, and this is a rage episode. We're not going to start out by yelling at you, but to affirm and empathize that mom rage can be a real thing. And I mean, you don't just have to be a mom, but I would say there is pressures that come with motherhood that can lead to overwhelm for many women. So we wanted to put together an episode for you on how to manage overwhelm without losing it. Emotional regulation and communication are big parts of that. So we're going to dive into that topic today. Hailee, do you have rage? I need to know.
I do. Specifically, you hear this all the time from us, the luteal phase. Oh my gosh, I have a story for you the other day. So it's like getting to the point where like the grass is dying. So Justin and I went up to our house. We did our last grass cut and I was like in the depths of my luteal phase. I had a long day and I'm like, I don't really want to cut the grass right now, but let's do this thing and get it over with. And so I was doing the little weed eater. And he had gone over the boulevard and he left a little strip of grass. You know how the lawnmower like misses a little strip? And
Yes.
I was sitting there just like,
You're down, so Hailee. Irritated.
He's here. He's helping you. And I was like gonna lose it. I'm like, this freaking guy.
Check it. Yeah. Make sure your lines are straight when you mow and make sure you don't miss strips.
This poor kid, he's like over there. He's helping me. He's being an amazing fiance, future husband. And I'm like over here like, oh, this guy.
Complaining about the help. Yeah.
I have self-awareness though. I realize that is very irrational of me, but I can't help it. I just feel like, oh my gosh, why does this make me mad?
Sometimes it's those like little particular things, right? And they've been ingrained into us. And it's funny, right? How much can we change though over time and how much can we train ourselves? Although those default habitual patterns will tend to resurface. And so I was known in my siblings, with my siblings, I was known as the psycho. Like I had the temper, rage state. I had like a punching bag when I was a teenager. I would just go to town on that thing. And I really actually struggled with managing my emotional outbursts if things got crazy. And looking back, I really think there were lots of times where I was in a state of overwhelm and I didn't know how to manage it. Being very hard on myself with, what are my grades in school? Always had super high grades in school, always like pushing myself to the max in sport and, just so many different areas. And it was like, it was too much, but I didn't even realize it. And it would come out in these outbursts of like, if you are questioning me too much or, I had phases of life where I was bullied and it was like, dude, I'm done with this. And I just lose it. And so I spent a lot of my life like, okay, I need to not ever get angry, like flipping it totally the other way and doing a lot of what I call the beach ball analogy. So think of it this way. If you have a beach ball and this beautiful beach ball that you are just trying to push down and hold, have you ever tried to push down and hold a beach ball underwater?
All the time.
Right. Or like you have those pool balls, when you're a kid and you're like sitting on it, you're like putting them under you.
Noodles?
Yeah. And you're like sitting on them and holding them down. Well, ultimately they come out and they always want to like pop back up to the surface. Right. Well, if you have this anger or overwhelm or distance that you've created that you're numbing or you're doing these behaviors that are like ignoring and denying your emotion, or you're really like crazy suppressing it, it's like holding that beach ball underwater for a really, really, really long time. And by the time it actually comes to the surface, it explodes up versus if you just let it like hover on the surface and deal with it as it comes. And so I like that analogy because sometimes what happens is if you, with one hand as a mom or even just in general life, if you're not a mom, you're holding this beach ball under the water with one hand, which might be your resentment or might be your internalization of your emotions. Meanwhile, you're trying to juggle all these other plates in your other hand. And you're like, I can't do that. Like, you can only do it for so long before everything blows up.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a sense of defeat too that comes with it. And you're just like, kind of that all or nothing that we speak about of like, I'm just gonna blow the heck up because I can't take this anymore. And it's that release, that like pop, right?
Yes. Or
Yeah.
depending on in the moments too, how much have you held on to something? I've had it both ways where um either myself or a loved one in my life has held on to something for a while, or you've stacked up a couple different things against them, like they didn't sleep well, they're hungry, they're I know, like for my husband, he'll have these sneeze attacks where he'll like sneeze like 10 times in a row. And if you didn't know that that just happened to him and you walked in the room and you try to like start telling him about something, he's almost like, leave me the frig alone. And you're like,
Hmm.
whoa, what's wrong with you? But you don't realize like what just happened to the person right before that. And he's just like, man, my head is pounding with pressure. Don't like bombard me right now. Right. And so lots of times it's like a stacking of multiple things that lead to those blowups, but the other person doesn't always know the whole story, and they don't know all the stories that are going on in your mind or how you slept the night before. So what happens is if you don't speak, resentment will.
Yep.
When you create distance, it turns anger into this habit that you just come back to doing this the same way, where you hold it in your mind, you create all these stories, there's all these unspoken needs. So your needs could just be as simple as needing help, needing some rest, needing to feel appreciated, or just needing more connection. But instead of actually having the conversations about these things in a productive way, you are stacking blocks of resentment on top of each other until the tower crashes down.
Yeah. The pressure just builds up and then explodes. And
Hmm.
I feel like for moms, and like you can attest to this, they're very like quiet about their needs too. I see this too a lot with, so I have some like stay-at-home moms, and I feel like there's a
As
guilt
clients?
towards that. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
as client. Yeah, I should have
You
said that.
have some
I
just
have some in
stashed
my
in your
basement.
closet. It's okay, keep going.
And I feel like there's like some guilt like that they're not bringing in income, and so they're like, oh yeah, I just have to stay quiet, and they kind of push down their needs more and more and more. So I feel like that's a very common thing that I see. I'm sure that you can speak to that.
Yeah, I can. There's a lot about attaching worth to a utilitarian type mindset. So if you feel like you're not productive enough, you have not financially contributed, you have not, you could fill in the blank with any of those things. You're attaching your worth and identity to that. And then all of a sudden you think you're not worthy of needs being met because you haven't provided enough. You're not enough, essentially, is the underlying message that you're telling yourself. And then you're projecting that lens onto the people around you, whether it be your husband or your kids or other people you interact with. So what can happen, so it can come out of a place of guilt, lack of self-worth, low self-esteem, or it can come from a place of conflict avoidance. So in the moment, silence can feel safer than conflict, especially if you've had previous interactions, whether it's like there was a lot of anger and blowups and fights that you never saw resolved as a child. I really hope not, but for some people, it is situations of more extreme abuse or traumatic events that have never been dealt with or talked about that are very, very hard, right? And by bringing them to the surface, it brings up a whole other set of emotions with it. So the path of least resistance can seem like silencing everything or numbing everything, but it's still there. The root is still there of why you feel so sensitive or so triggered by things. So what we can do instead is we need to build trust on small agreements, and create this place where we can come and be open about our needs from a place of peace. Because if we're just doing the silence and resentment thing and conflict avoidance, which feels safer in the moment but not long term, what it does is it builds a bunch of walls instead of creating safety and peace in the
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah. What do you say if, like, say that's the case and, like, mom is communicating to her husband being like, I need this, I need that, and it's not receptive? Like, how do you work through that?
Well, that's a good question. Most of the time, what we do is we try to play out the scenario ahead of time, where we set an expectation. So it's called going in. It's a really hard thing to do, but it's going into every conversation without a previous agenda or a previous expectation of the outcome. So you're thinking to yourself, well, if I say this, he's going to say that. Then I'm going to do this. I usually react like that. Then he reacts like this. You've done the scenario before. So your brain is preparing yourself for the next blow because you feel like it'll hurt less if you're ready for it, right?
Mhm.
Instead of coming, and a lot of that comes from grudge holding. That's a tough one. It's very hard for your emotional limbic brain to let go of any time that it's been hurt in the past. So instantly you're like, if I bring this up, I'm going to express my needs and he's going to blow up at me. And then what am I going to do? And what is that going to mean for us? And what are our kids going to see and experience? Right? That's really hard stuff to work through. So you have to go in, or this is what I've learned anyways, is going in without expecting that they're going to give you the outcome that you want. All you can do is bring the expression of your need. So I need support. I need space. I really need to feel seen or heard by you, or letting them know I feel dismissed. And that can happen on both sides. I'm very thankful. My husband and I have both worked a lot on this, where he has actually said that to me. I feel like no matter how much effort I'm putting in, it that you haven't acknowledged it. And I'm like, oh, whoa, thanks. This can happen the other way too, right? Well, why have I not acknowledged it? Because I've been stressed myself. I've been focused and absorbed in my own world. And now the person that I'm partnered with doesn't feel appreciated. And that can happen both ways, right? So you have to ask yourself, if you are coming into a conversation with expressing your needs, don't get defensive if they feel like they need to express their needs back to you. Because I think very easily we can always try to make it about ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's the tough thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, many people have trained themselves or been trained. I don't know how I should say that, but either way, that anger is always a bad thing. Okay, anger, it's only if anger is attached to a detrimental action. So, for example, if someone outbursts in anger and I walk out onto my porch and I grab the nearest baseball out of the toy bin and I throw the baseball hard across the yard, but I don't throw it at anyone. I'm just like like letting my movement and my emotion out. I'm expressing that anger, like I use the punching bag analogy. It's okay for me to release that tension and emotion from my body if I'm not hurting anyone, which we talk a lot about fitness. You just work out harder that day. And sometimes that feels really good for your brain and body, but it's not hurting anyone. Versus if you throw something at someone or you physically punch someone, right? Like that then that's the problem. So if you've experienced where there's been a detrimental action towards you in anger, then there's a lot more fear attached to that, right? Because you're like, shoot, I don't want to get hurt. I want to feel safe. So the whole thing in any conversation where you're trying to open up about your needs, the best thing to do is with your partner, if you can have these conversations when you're not in a heightened state of emotion, when you both have downtime, when you both have set aside time for date night or whatever it is, to be able to work through, hey, when crap is hitting the fan, when we're both stressed, how can we always agree to try to come back to a place of safety where we're not ever expressing our emotion in a way that is intentionally hurtful towards the other person? So I brought up physical action, but this can also be mental and emotional. So this can be withdraw of loving behaviors as well. So I'm going to give you the silent treatment now
Mm-hmm.
for days. That's also emotionally very damaging.
Yeah.
And that is then going to cause an avoidance behavior, right? So it's hard because you can't control that other person. So this is where you have to come at it from a place of trust, and trust that you can let them, you need to learn to have enough patience to give them the time they need to process it as well. This is
Yeah.
something that I've really struggled with. I'm like, I want resolution immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
not always the case though.
Yeah. There's different people. I'm definitely, what's coming up for me too while you're speaking is like avoidance versus anxiously attached people and things like that, because we have different attachment styles, but also like curious. So preventative care, or like after the fact, say someone has mom rage and after the fact we go into that situation and see like, okay, husband, I need some help here, XYZ. What happens and what would you say to that mom who is like progressively getting more angry and needs a healthier um outlet in terms of like going, I guess exercise is one thing that you said. What else would be considered healthy outlets when like the bubbling up happens, because that's definitely where we make the worst decisions.
Right. Yeah. So just to clarify, are you saying like that this person has maybe already blown up and now they've calmed and they need to kind of regain forgiveness or reconciliation, or are you saying you feel it rising
The
and you're
latter.
trying to prevent it from going to
Yes.
full rage? Okay. So with that, oh, that's a good one. There's a couple different things. I really believe in the small things. Never stop doing the small things that are daily actions, because it's going to increase your bandwidth over time. So emotional regulation isn't built in the big breakthrough moments. It's built in the micro habits of care. So the tea, the walk, the hug, the prayer, the nervous system resets, the go get a massage, go get an adjustment. And so it's that's a hard answer because you're like, okay, great, thanks. You're just back to the lifestyle stuff. But it's like, it does, because if your nervous system isn't always in flight or fight, you're way less on edge on a regular basis. So, first order of business is never stop doing those small things that are going to keep you at a better baseline for how reactive your nervous system is. And a tip for that is refill, like keeping in your forefront of your mindset your daily refills. So I will do it where, let's say, a simple example in my own life is something that has helped me tons with not going into blow up stage is doing less habitual when I open my phone before bed. This is a huge one. If I go to click, if it's late at night and I go to click on TikTok as an example, or Instagram, I will open it and then I'll be like, no, it's past 9 p.m. or it's past, in that zone, or I'm physically in bed. I will flick it off and I will turn on my prayer and meditation app. And I do that every single day. And what that does is it gives me a chance to train my brain how to increase my capacity to process thoughts and emotions in silence. Some people will also journal those thoughts out. It allows me time to bring these issues that I'm having or these things I'm wrestling with to a time of prayer where I'm creating faith and hope and cultivating love in my life, and also always bringing myself back to the bigger picture, knowing that I'm not doing this alone, and knowing that God is helping me, knowing that the people who are also praying for me or I'm praying for them. So those are all like daily actions that are simple but not easy, because your brain wants to go back to the things that allow you to numb out. So if I stayed on TikTok, I'd just start scrolling and watching and comparing myself to other people and all of that right before bed. And now I'm not falling asleep. And now I'm waking up tired. So now, do you think when my husband comes to say something to me and his tone is a bit off while I'm making
Mm-hmm.
our breakfast, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't realize that. Versus, wow, I actually fell asleep very peacefully and I woke up in a better mood and I did my workout. Okay, that's a big tangent, but you get the idea. It's all those like nonstop daily things that get you in this place where you can receive feedback from people, you can have open conversations and not be instantly defensive.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, what's my good question here? We're doing all these daily habits.
Mhm.
What are some signs that like you need to pay more attention to those daily habits? Is it like irritability? Like how would you progressively see your like stress tolerance becoming weaker?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Well, irritability is definitely one of them. A huge one that I don't think gets talked about enough is defensiveness. And so you can't love or lead another person well if you are too busy defending yourself. So it applies for motherhood, it applies for everyone, but you can't parent from a defensive posture. Same thing if you've now, why would you be in a defensive posture? Well, stress response is one of them. You're in flight, fight, you're freezing, you're cowering, all of those, along with irritability and reactiveness, is kind of that defensiveness. Now, your body, what it's doing is the signal is telling you that you do not feel safe. When you are defensive, your body is trying to protect you. You're not in it. You don't want to ruin these relationships, right? You want to build trust and you want to restore safety. You want to feel safe. You want to feel secure. So what can happen is if you notice yourself always like jumping back in with a defense to a person, you're like, okay, there's something I'm not paying attention to here within myself. If the other person is constantly being defensive to you, maybe their needs aren't being met, or you're both just doing it to each other so much that you're like, okay, we need to do a full reset together here. And so that's a huge one. Defensiveness.
Yeah. So in terms of like what's the counter of that? So you don't want to be defensive. What do you want to be?
Oh, look at you with all the good questions
You
today.
know, I'm I'm even impressing myself. I'm like, and I'm actually it's so funny because I'm actually remembering the questions and I'm like tracking because I'm very interested. I love this topic,
Yeah.
by the way. That's why
Oh,
I'm asking you
good,
such
good.
great
Yeah.
questions.
Being in a place of forgiveness. And so I talked earlier about, I brought up the grudge holding thing, is most of the time when you're in a defensive posture, you've stacked grudges on top of each other. Or maybe it's a grudge that you've been holding on to for a long time that you haven't thought about in a while, but something triggers it and it pops right back up to where it once was. Right. And
Hmm.
so what there, this is a tough one, but it's really, really important. It's coming to a point of resolution within yourself and with the people around you. So when people feel guilty, so let's kind of bring it back even to the example of, let's say you've already blown up. Okay. So many times people will then, once they've calmed down, they will feel heaps of guilt and shame. They will pour the coals on their own head. Women especially do this, right? Where they're like, oh my gosh, I did it again. I lost it. And now I'm wrecking my kids' childhood. Now they have trauma. And how am I going to come back from this? And you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm such a horrible person. I'm a horrible mom. And then all of a sudden, someone just has to comment on something you did. And now you're telling them that they think you're a horrible mom. So it's this whole like spiral, right?
Hmm.
So how do we work with that? Well, when you are heaping coals on your head, you're not in a state of forgiveness yourself. Like you're not forgiving yourself for making that mistake, right? You're expecting no mistakes. You're expecting absolute perfection, right? Which is not part of human nature. We can always grow and learn and come back to, maybe I haven't done this in a while. It was longer between, or I recognized the signs earlier, or I got off track, but I brought it back to center quicker, right? So giving yourself, um, seeing that progress within yourself is helpful for letting go and for self forgiveness. Another one is if you have these thoughts where you feel bad because you've blown up, or let's say you and your spouse have gotten a fight and now you're like, oh, well, this created all this turmoil for our kids and we're wrecking our kids' lives. Like you can easily go down that rabbit hole. The most important thing is that they see you resolve and that you actually come back to it. You don't just sweep it under the rug and say, well, let's just pretend this never happened. Let's just never talk about it. Make it so that your kids feel like they can never say anything to anyone, that on the exterior, everyone would think you have this perfect life, but they're carrying all these burdens of like, yeah, but we actually yell at each other around the dinner table, but nobody knows about it. You need to actually, you don't need to go and tell every person on the street every detail of your life, but you need to be open as a family. Guys, listen, we will do it sometimes, you know, if we've had a rough go where everyone's stressed and we're all at each other, maybe everyone sleeps. And the next morning at breakfast, we sit around like, guys, you know what? We had a rough night last night. And you need to start by you can only control you. So if you're the first one to make that apology to lead towards forgiveness, listen, forgiveness doesn't erase pain, but it builds trust. How do you build that trust? I would sit down at the table with everyone and be like, I am really sorry for how I acted. And I wouldn't try to justify it, but I would say, I blew up because I've been really stressed and I took it out on you guys. Can you please forgive me for taking that out on you? You deserve better. I did not need to do that. And I am going to try my best not to do that to you next time that I'm stressed. And like our kids are great about that. Like they're usually like, "Oh yeah, no, it's okay, mom. Like, thanks so much for, having like telling us this." Or we will sometimes bring it back to the example of like, listen, I'm only human too. The same way, like, so we'll take it with the sibling fights, right? The same way the other day you blew up at your brother because he just wouldn't listen to you, right? His older sisters told him 1,000 times this same thing, like, please stop poking me, please stop poking me, please stop poking me, until she's like, stop poking me, right? She went to that rage state because she felt ignored.
Yep.
And so I will use that example to be like, hey, literally the same thing just happened for me. I just felt like none of you guys were listening to me, to the point where I was like, I feel unheard. So now I feel like I have to yell for you to hear me, which shouldn't be the case. It's a two-way street and we got to work together, right? So that analogy clicks pretty well with kids. And so this is what I find interesting about, and this is kind of more the faith side of it, is if you have accountability outside yourself. So our kids have brought this up when we've had debrief conversations where it's like, for them, mom and dad are their accountability. They get mad at a sibling, they start fighting, you punched your brother. Who's going to stop that? Mom or dad's going to step in and we're going to have a conversation, or there's going to be disciplinary action, or there's going to be something, right? We're going to keep them from doing something absolutely horrendous to their sibling, right? And then there's the consequence. And we will hold the line on the consequence. Well, our kids have brought it up. They're like, well, yeah, but dad just got mad and blew up and we can't discipline him. Like, who's holding dad accountable? Who's holding mom accountable? So what's really cool is like, the sacrament of reconciliation at church is like, no, dad's going to go talk to the priest about this. And not for the sake of reconciliation is all about fixing relationship and learning how to forgive, not for the sake of like, oh, you're going to get a slap on the wrist, but for the sake of like, now you're accountable to someone. So do you actually, in your moment of rage, do you actually want to have to go explain what you did to another person? And they're going to hold you accountable. And usually that accountability is like, you say, hey, this is what I did. This is what I shouldn't have did. This is what I feel bad about. And the priest is then going to be like, there's going to be forgiveness. Listen, yes, you are now forgiven for this. It's a good thing. And they usually give you tips of like, hey, next time, pray this prayer in the moment before you make the action. It's going to help your mind to calm. It's going to help you operate from a place of love, right? So I love that personally, because it's not like, for my husband even, he's not just accountable to me, he's accountable to people outside of me, right? He's accountable to God. So we explain that to our kids, and that's really helpful for them, because then they know that, well, we're not the only ones. Like there is something keeping mom and dad wanting to do good for all of us and wanting to grow in love. And so that really helps with forgiveness, because forgiveness is always about, and reconciliation is always about, restoring the relationship with each other. And so that's a beautiful thing. And that's how you build trust, both between you and your spouse and with your kids. Because if they never see you resolve, if they only ever see you fight and they never see you resolve, that's what's damaging.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, this is kind of off topic. I'm so sorry, but I'm just going to bring it up anyways. With all this Charlie Kirk stuff, I've been, still watching all this stuff. And one thing that he said that I thought was really cool, and I didn't really click these two things together, but like your kids, essentially, like you are their like father and mother, just like you say like father, like in church and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Father God.
It's that same respect hierarchy kind of thing, which I thought was a really cool correlation because I didn't really think of it like that. But like morally, it makes a lot of sense.
Totally. You hit it nail on the head, because you're now, again, it creates a moral hierarchy of accountability, right? And that you are operating in a system beyond yourself. Like, something I love that Mother Teresa said that is a problem within our society and our families is that we have forgotten that we belong to one another. That our every single action we do, this is not supposed to be a daunting thing, but it's really good to always have in our awareness that everything we do affects someone else in our ecosystem. And if you think about it on a grander world scale, we can see that that's true. And so when we operate with care, we operate out of love and forgiveness and the goal of always building trust and restoring relationship amongst humans, things always go better. Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely. Because like you can't avoid conflict, you can't avoid problems. It's like the resolution that's way more important than the actual problem.
Yes. And most of the time, like with that, is there's a reason for it. Like, there's a lesson that you have to learn, right? There's a reason for things. There's a season for things. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to learn things. But as long as you're always, like, to me, if you're always coming back to a place of wanting to learn, and think about it, like, if someone's irritable and defensive, they're so busy defending themselves, they're not in a teachable state. And so if you think about, if you've ever coached a kid, or maybe just with your own kids or your spouse, you start to feel like this person is not willing to receive anything from anyone, right? But the only way you can kind of prep your own self for that is, I love this analogy, you can't push a rope, you can only pull it. That's the lead by example analogy. If I'm not willing to humble myself enough to sit down at the table and be like, guys, here's how I contributed to this situation, and please, can you forgive me? So where I've struggled in the past is, let's say I'm not the one who started the fight. Like, if John's the one who blew up first, I would have in the past, I've gotten better at it, but I would have been the past it'd be very hard for me to sit down and be the one who brings up the reconciliation, forgiveness conversation, because I want to hang on to like, but you're the one who started this. None of this would have happened if you hadn't of fill in the blank, right? Instead of in that moment realizing I can't push that other person, it's not going to go well. I need to pull them and be like, listen, here's what I did that I feel like I could have done way better is, sure, you said the comment first, but I reacted back with an extreme reaction. And then it escalated from there. So in that initial moment, even if you were snappy with me, I have a choice in that moment every single time.
Yep.
To be like, you snap at me, I'm going to bite your head off. Or you snap at me, I'm going to take a deep breath. Maybe you don't respond immediately. Maybe you give yourself a moment. Right? And then I think being aware of gaslighting as well. I just explained this to my 7-year-old. So we were talking about like, okay, how does a fire burn? Right? Because if you pour gasoline on over the wood and then you light the match, right? When we get close to people, the reason that the people we love the most, we also blow up at each other the easiest, is because you know that person so well. You know what they love. You also know what they hate. You also knows what irks them. And if you're mad at the world and you just want to bring someone down with you, who's the easiest person to bring down? The person you know the best, because you can gaslight them. You know what tips them off. And why do you do it? It's the opposite of love. It's in this place of like, I'm experiencing this misery. And so how do I make myself feel better? I'm going to make you miserable too.
Misery loves company.
Right? That's really being in a revenge state, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Jeez.
I feel like one thing also that is a big one, and I think this applies to parenting when you're working together. And I know this maybe could feel different, right? If you're operating as a single parent, and I can't speak to that as much. I did a window of time where John and I had to live apart for 11 months.
Really?
Yeah,
When?
because that was when I first moved to Peace River. They wanted to the people we bought the clinic from wanted to sell it immediately because they had other things going on in their lives. And so in order to actually buy it at that
Oh.
time, I needed to move out right away. And Tessa was 3 months and Violet was a 3-year-old. And so John still had to finish his internship in Toronto. And we just made the decision, which, yeah, it was a tough decision. And I don't know, it worked out. I don't know if it was the best decision. It was hard for sure. But it did create empathy for me in like, this is what it feels like to be single
Mhm.
parenting, where you're feeling like when you're going through these struggles or when you're in a stress state, that you're kind of more solely responsible for how you're operating and leading your children. And I would say in that case, what I found was a lot of the self care type stuff. I would come home from a full care of, or a full day at work, and sometimes I would just feel wiped. And my kids were little, like the girls were little then, and we had a big bathtub, so we would all just get in the tub, and so they would play with their little bath toys, and I would just lay in there in like the warm water and let my shoulders relax and take deep breaths and be like, "Hey, cool, we're all together. Nobody's fighting. I'm off my feet." Like there are zones of your life where you just got to do what you got to do to not be in that high stress blow up state and be able
Mhm.
to like form connection in the way that you can with your children. If you're married, or if you're, if you're not like apart because your parent, like, because I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends around here too have husbands who will work away from the home for weeks at a time and then they're back, which can be a whole other challenge, right? Because there's a lot of back and forth. But if you're parenting and you're kind of always in each other's space most days, think of it like within your marriage, like it isn't 50-50. It's
Mhm.
100-100 on different
Yeah.
days. So like many moms can lose it when they feel like they're giving 150% with nothing left in the tank. And a lot of that is reframing your mindset. Like it's not about equally giving every single day. The partnership goes in seasons. So there's going to be times where you're carrying way more and there's going to be times when he's carrying way more. And having those conversations ahead of time when you're not in a heightened stress state is a really good way to create understanding for how the other person is feeling so that you're not keeping score and you start
Yeah.
feeling safe because scorekeeping doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I'm solely, just so you know, basing my entire relationship on your tips, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Um but I was telling Justin about I think this was a podcast we did a while ago, but what you said about like you have your own problems and your problems are like really important to you, but that other person also has their own problems that are very important to them. So
Yes.
just bringing that understanding to it and like knowing that like if you guys are both operating or trying to operate at least at 100% each, that kind of lowers that scoreboard because you kind of know like okay,
Mm.
this other person is also, they also have stressors, they also have bad days at work that they might not be telling me, and it's like not all about you and what you're dealing with. And that is just revolutionized my way of thinking. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, and
yeah.
I'm going to give you this example of my mother. Okay. Allowing love to run so deep that it's not contingent on what the other person can do or do
Yeah.
for you. Right. And so my mom, my mom lived this. I'm going to try not to tear up, but, when my dad, like after his brain surgeries, because my dad passed away of a glioblastoma, right? Brain tumor. And my dad, very high functioning man, his entire life, running multiple businesses, very active in exercise and like just so many things, running
Mhm.
committees, church groups, etc. Okay. So a lot of what you could say is like he provided a lot of things on a lot of levels for my mom in their relationship. And he was just fun too, right? And so all of a sudden, all of that is stripped away. My
Yeah.
dad's lying in a hospital bed. He can't do anything after his second surgery. I watch my mom day in and day in and day out, come, brush his teeth, change his feeding tube, massage his feet. There's nothing in it for her at that point,
Yeah.
other than this is the man that she loves, right? And so you need to ask yourself with the other person that you are living with day in and day out, if they could do none of this, would I want to love them in a way that I would want to be loved, or in the way that they want to be loved, or help to provide for their needs?
Yeah.
Right? She sat by his bedside saying prayers and holding his hand, and like she'd bring her guitar in and play songs for him. Like I can't even. So I think a lot of that, a
I'm gonna
lot of
cry
that,
now.
I know, me too. But it's such a beautiful demonstration of love. So you got to get this like notion out of your head that love is based on what you can do for each other. It's
Yeah.
got to run deeper than that. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to ask yourself, what can I give today? And then what do I need to receive? Not just what can I receive and what's in it
Yeah.
for me,
Not a
right?
transactional
It's not
thing.
transactional. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a higher level virtue than that, right? And
Mhm.
that's where I think we've lost that in our culture somewhat, but I think it's
Absolutely. I think so too. I think that too because like one maybe people don't understand the like depth of that decision.
yes.
And then two, I feel like it's easier for people just to kind of leave and be like, actually this is too hard and I'm just going to leave because people already essentially have one foot out the door rather
Yeah.
than having both feet in. And it's like, okay, the option of divorce is completely off the table. Like that's not, don't even have that come out of your mouth.
Right. Yeah. And yes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard because of people, whenever you have that type of like situation, people will then bring up specific scenarios like, what would you do if this or this person did that? And I know it's hard. Every situation is different, but
Hmm.
I totally agree with you. Going into the situation where you've like resolved to, we are going to grow through all the hard things.
Yeah.
Go through, but grow through, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, no, I think that's huge. And it's pretty much time for us to wrap up here. But as you were saying that, I thought about this same thing with kids, right? It's like, think about that's also not a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
Where another thing that where moms can overextend themselves is where they're doing absolutely everything for their kids. They're giving, 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 but it's building up in their minds. But I would say this to you is ask yourself when you're tired at the end of the day and your kid is laying on the couch because maybe you watched a show or something and they're little still and they're like, Mom, can you carry me to bed? And your mind is like, oh, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of carrying kids. I'm tired of being touched and all the different things.
Yeah.
None of us know the last time that you're going to carry them, right? None of us know the last time that you're going to hang out all together. Like, I think about this. It's pretty hard to get to now. I have 3 siblings, but it's pretty hard now in our adult lives and living different areas of the world to get together all of our siblings.
Yeah.
But those are the people you grew up with, that you hung out with, that you weren't like, or think about like your high school friend group. You
Hmm.
didn't know the last time you were all going to hang out.
Yep. The great
And
disperse.
and then it's all of a sudden it's just that moment is
Yeah.
gone,
And
right?
you don't really realize it either until you're like, oh, wow, that actually happened back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So something I do, this is kind of funny, something I do with Wesley. I'm like, because he loves being carried to bed after a movie night or something. And I'm like, Wes, I got you, man. But someday you're going to be big and strong and I'm going to be a little old lady and you're going to pick me up and carry me to bed. Right. And he's like, okay, Mom. I'm like, here, let's try now. And I'll pretend to like get in a position where he can carry me. And he's like, I can't carry you. Right. But yeah,
Oh,
it's like having fun, trying to have fun in
mhm.
the moments. Right. I think is another big
Absolutely.
one. But thank you, Hailee, for asking me so many questions today.
Thank you for your wealth of knowledge. I
Oh,
absolutely love these topics. You're so good at it.
oh, thank you. Well, and we really hope that this was helpful for you. If you're in that phase of life or you know a mom who's in a season where they're just white knuckling their way through each week, please share this episode with them because hopefully it can be part of filling up their cup because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Right.
Exactly.
Share this episode with a friend, rate it, review it, and in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.